Welcome to yet another long-awaited episode of the Ivan Show. I bring you the person you have asked for a number of times. I remember 12th October, there is a lady from Spain. He raised me via Facebook and gave her analysis on the show. I think it was in way back in September. I conducted a show with one of the journalists at UBC, and he was deliberating on security matters. But at the end of that show, he said he's an atheist. So majority of you through comment section on YouTube, through phone calls and verbal conversations, you have asked me to bring back Ivan Kahwa to talk about how he strikes a balance between religious life and the atheism he talks about. They want him to confirm and deliberate and give some reasons why he thinks being an atheist is the best option for him and maybe for other people who may think they are in the right direction. Ivan Kahwa, I welcome you to the show today.
Thank you so much, my brother, for hosting me once again.
Due to public demand, people have asked me to bring you back, but I have taken some time to do a background check and prepare for this show Saturday for the past 2 months. Now, you were a religious journalist who was once a preacher, was once an altar boy, who believed so much in religion and associated matters. But all of a sudden, you say you are an atheist. What is the rationale of your being an atheist?
First of all, thank you so much for the opportunity once again. And this is one of the most controversial or feared topics to talk about because each one of us faces certain challenges depending on the belief system you decide to take. We are lucky that in this era, you reach at a point where you have to decide on your own as an individual. Gone are the days when the law dictates that by 18 you're grown up, but today you can even be 30 when you have not grown before the society, But those days, once you were 18, you were a boy, they knew you are supposed to marry, you are supposed to do this, and society would help you achieve that. My life, spiritual life, I can say. I was born in a very, very staunch Catholic family. Everyone was a prayerful warrior in our family, apart from one person. That was my dad. I am told from the stories I had that even his second name was given to him by his teacher. I think the last time he stepped in church was when he was young. He was being taken by the mother. To the best of his knowledge, that's when he could remember, and he was also just told. So he actually doesn't know whether he has ever stepped in church. So, but basically, I came in Kampala when I was still young, and I grew up with a family where there were believers, there were people who drink, there were army, then we had international neighboring community. So the experience was diverse. Now, striking a balance between a community that drinks, that doesn't eat pork. There is a community within the same people that eats pork. You have born-agains, you have Catholics, you have Muslims, and quite many.
Yes.
So I had a cocktail of experience to learn from.
Yes.
However, my dad was always tough, so I always took his path. And having that background of the army was always hard on me sometimes. So he's the one who grew me at a certain point. Now, this thing of the religious aspect, by the way, I am someone who was always never excited to celebrate issues like Christmas, like Sundays that I'm supposed to be in church. It never always took my thoughts. But because of the bandwagon, I always knew that by Christmas, it's when they buy us new clothes. You remember those days when they were making those shirts? We used to, t-shirts, we used to watch wrestling.
Yes.
So they would print t-shirts having either Undertaker, the Kane, those powerful wrestlers. By then, and you would be expectant that they would buy for you new clothes. So that's why you would embrace church because there's something you want to get in the end.
Yeah.
And it was always a principle that if you are not praying, we are not going to do this. If you are not doing this, so I found
So
myself.
it was one way of you benefiting some of the things like clothing.
Apparently, now for me, in order to get that T-shirt, I was like, why shouldn't I go and pray? After all, I get my T-shirt. It's the same. I'll wait for another year to come. Now, I used to go to St. Bali Kudembe Church. It's in Chisenyi. That's where we used to pray. We go Vikira Maria, Judemema, Gwenamukisamba Kazibona, you recite the rosary 3 times, you kneel down, you close your eyes, you go to that Maria who was put in a glass, well designed, it is lighting in the night. You pray and pray and pray.
Mother Mary.
So, Mother Mary. I would do that. Now there is a time they used to go for Mujita Kusembera to
Holy
have
Communion.
that, the Holy Communion, to have that.
Yes.
So I remember one time lining up to go and have it. When I reached there, the preacher said the statement. I didn't know what to reply. So for me, I just kept quiet. They pushed me away. They said leave. So I didn't have it. I was like, what could be the reason? Everyone is being given, and I'm not given. Why? I said, oh, okay. I went outside. I went to my friends. I initiated plays at home. When I reached home, I said, you guys, now I want us to play a kind of skit, but for me, I will be the one who is going to marry. So we need a priest in this sense. And one of the activity the priest is going to do is to give that Holy Communion. So in tandem, I picked someone who always prays so that I can know what word does that priest speak or preacher state, and how do I respond. So the woman I was going to marry was the one to first get the Holy Communion. Because for me, I wanted to go back the other side, eat that bread, and I feel how it tastes. Now, when we were there, we lined up, we started playing. So when the preacher mentioned something, I saw the woman replying, Amen. I said, oh, that is the only thing. I said, okay. That day I went home. I cleaned the house. I fetched water. I did everything. My mom was like, what's wrong with this boy? Today is very excited. I know on Sunday, come want me have to eat that thing. I want to know what happens, what is there, how sweet is it? You know, that kind of, because there were a lot of myths I was hearing about it, that if you eat it without going for those studies, you can die. Something like that. I was like, okay. Now on Sunday, church. Very early, I was already there. So every other thing was just bypassing my ears. I was waiting for one thing, that time for the Holy Communion. Then we stood, I went. The man talked, and then I was like, Amen. He dropped it there. No sooner I did dropped it there, I took it, and from there it was done. But I was seeing everyone humble. They even go and but for me, by the time I reached my desk, I was even yearning for more. I was like, So now, that was the first time I broke my own personal myth that I had.
Wait, did you go through confirmation?
Nothing.
Church protocols? Because you see, it is not a matter of you being a Catholic and getting to church to receive Holy Communion.
But nothing happened to me anyway.
You must be baptized and receive Holy Confirmation. Qualify. That is a sin in Catholic Church.
No, nothing happened to me.
Yes.
And what happens to the born agains who baptized when you're grown up? Does it mean if you are baptized when you're still young, then rebaptize you again? That's what it qualifies you to be born again. So, but anyway, when I ate that thing, there are certain beliefs I had towards church, in terms of, you know, there is some information they could tell you, if you do that thing, this and this and this will happen. So I ate this. Nothing happened. I was like, hey, nothing. When I learned that, I went back to school. I used to have discussions with members, and for me, whatever I used to learn, by the way, I think that's what behind my my kind of success in terms of sharing information and knowledge. Whatever I used to learn from my own experience, I would go and share it with the students. I would even pose a question that, by the way, did you know if you went and for the Holy Communion without even going through the protocols of church, you will not die? They were like, no, but my man told me you're going to die and something. I was like, I'm not dead. I've not died and something like that. So I broke it that way. But now, to carry the story short, that was the Catholic. Now, I used to find problems praying in Catholic churches because to me it was always boring. The way they speak, that echo in the church, entire, you know,
Holy Spirit.
and it has a lot of old men and women,
Yes.
So I was like, I don't fit in this kind of society. But now I had my mom, who was a born again, real one, ngasabira wa Chiganda. Now I have a dad, it is the woman who is to pressurize him. You pray, you're having problems, pray and something like that. Then I have all neighbors are Muslims. I was once a Muslim. I was even called Ismail. That's the name I had. But I moved away from Islam after committing some kind of misbehaviors. After I just misbehaved in a mosque. For me, I was against why do I need to be isolated, that a man should pray alone and women should pray alone. You even split the mosque to separate.
Were you there real as a believer, or you wanted to find out?
Because when I felt bored in the Christianity aspect, I found that Islam, in terms of hygiene, in terms of togetherness, in terms of sunnah, helping one another, I found that the Islamic religion was by far better in practical terms of enhancing the livelihood of anyone who is depressed and suffering than the other counterparts. Because the Muslims would find you at home. For example, in Eid al-Adha, where they slaughter animals, they would rally the entire community. But on Christmas, you are actually supposed to go to the village and provide, which was a different case from the Muslim fraternity. So I found it a kind of a responsible religion as well. And it was not so wordy. You just have to come, pray, leave. Pray, leave. So you have breaks of praying, but then the other side, if you are to pray, it is the whole day. You have to, as if you have to die on that and praying or something like that. So when I got away from the Muslim community, that's when I now entered born again. Now this is where the entire confusion started. I used to pray at Christian Life Center. I have been in this church of in Rubaga. Pastor Robert Kayanja.
Yes.
I have been in churches in Mutundwe. I have been in Salama. I have been in Sambia, Kevina. I have been here in Rugogo. Yes, those big churches. So quite many churches have been there.
Yes.
But in all my experience in being there, I was always there as a prayer warrior or believer. But as well, I was trying to understand the difference between all these churches. Because I had a mom who would board from Namasuba to come and pray at Kawala, the late pastor Igabi Zayo's church. But you had about 40 churches in the vicinity. So I was asking, could it be that the God within those churches is probably different from the God in Kawala? Why is it so? Why do you have to travel from Entebbe to come to Kawala when you have churches in Entebbe? So I started asking myself these questions. So I did prayer, and by then I was not questioning the reality of religion. I was simply praying. And you'd realize that each and every testimony I would give, I would say, God really helped me to pass exams and something like that. I would fast, and possibly I would do dry fasting. I would spend about 4 days without eating anything but drinking water. So that's how deep I was into things of religion.
Ivan Kawa is we are discussing the life and story of a religious journalist turned into an atheist. And for him, life after death is a myth. Ivan, at what age did you completely turn to be an atheist and you dwell with the religious aspects?
That was after campus. And why? I'll explain why.
Before you explain why, to what extent did journalism contribute to your being an atheist?
You see, journalism requires someone who is a critical thinker. Journalism requires assessment of damage of content. Journalism requires giving a proportionate of content that can safeguard you and even the people consuming it. Would it be probable if you came breaking news, 20 million Ugandans have been killed in a raid? Does it make sense? But a journalist, to reduce the magnitude of the thing, will say Uganda has registered an attack and some citizens have been wounded, others have died, but we shall give you details. You buy time for people to prepare their minds on what has happened. that by the time they start asking how many have died, that's when you break it. So journalism in one or the other did not contribute to my spiritual belief system. No, that was entirely studies, because after all, I wasn't in journalism by accident. For me, I took journalism because I wanted it to support my talent that I already had. Now, at campus, I was a leader, I was a preacher, I was part of a cell group called Angels of Christ. I would be in church every time they need me. I would be in overnights, but I'd never missed any day to go in a bar. On that Friday, we had a bar called Hotspot. So every Friday, I am there. After bar, straight you go to church. Pray, pray, pray. Or sometimes you have overnight on Thursday, you sleep there. You know. Now, I started assessing my own life with those that I pray with. I was like, no, this one doesn't pray. He doesn't go to the bar. He's always praying. His studies, his reading culture and results, when they sit exams, he's wanting, he's not, he's not passing.
Yes,
but
yes,
this is a
yes,
person.
is a good follow of God.
Then I was like, but for me, actually, I'm doing everything. I'm having experience in the secular music, and I'm having experience in the spiritual music, but I end up passing my exams, and I'm passing highly. So what is it that is in me that is not in the other person who believes? Because for them, they don't think, they believe that they are believers, But rather for me, I can think and say, I think I am a believer, because you are not sure whether you are or not. But for them, they are sure that I'm a believer. So I was like, so if these are all the people praying, and you're not passing your examinations, but you keep praying, every day you're asking God to give you brains and knowledge and something like that, maybe the networks that you're having are not the ones making you pass. Because for me, realistically, Ivan, I was not bad enough in terms of education, in terms of reading. All the projects I did, nazikolanga sina na laptop. No one bought me a laptop, but I was using laptops of my other colleagues and friends to come up with my own projects. So that's how versatile and attentive I was. So we started going for these tours. Ivan ngangenda wali nembuulira enjiri nenkwata Bible nenkubikulira ekitabo nembaga muzibirize nembatsabira nengawulira omwoyo biti. My friend, real preaching. Now, at that point, there is a way you feel when bobera n'abantu nga balinga 200 and you just tell the entire church, keep silent, close your eyes, and receive the Holy Spirit. Everyone is silent. Silent kabisa. Now, I am also there. Technically, I am preaching, but you'd feel as if you also don't know what is going on. Now, because of that state of being unable to define the mood that you've put the people in and the mood you are in, your subconscious will tend to tell you that actually the Holy Spirit is around.
So do you want to mean that because in Catholic seminaries, there is what we call grand silence. There is a time when it reaches that nobody is supposed to speak.
When you speak, what happens?
It is prohibited. It is prohibited.
But what happens?
So are you saying that these seminaries are engineering people not to think?
But what happens?
That is something spiritual that we cannot know.
Now.
And by the way, it is a serious case.
Very serious. I went for Holy Communion without passing through the protocols of the church. Nothing happened. I am still alive. I am operating. Everything is okay.
Now, yes.
I used to remove my shoes going in the mosque. But today, oyingira church nengato zobodi otya ababugingo bagwa mu bisoto because the Holy Spirit ye kati aita mu bisoto. But if you are a reasonable person, Ivan, if you saw your wife being told to fall into mud, that's where the opportunities are, would you even allow that woman to come back at your home? But if you're a believer, you will, because you're saying, I understand her things spiritually. For us, we don't know. We're the atheists.
Now,
we don't know.
Ivan,
but for me, I'm challenging that. It's wrong. You're making your clothes dirty. You're going to get diseases.
Statistics on different websites, they bring that atheists are people who are educated and at least they have a college degree. They research a lot. Now, Muslims, I want you to discuss this. Muslims, they flaunt For them, they believe that they are holy, they are near Allah, and they pray. But when you give world statistics as regards to war crimes, you find Muslims are always fronted as people who are the ones killing, who are the ones committing A, B, C, and D. Now, where does the spiritual aspect come in? Yet they are the ones being accused, and sometimes they do it. We also believe that they do it. They are Al-Shabaab, ADF, and it is associated with Muslims. Where does this leave the Imams and the people who believe in God and Allah?
You see, for me, the only problem I have with believers, they always want to subject their belief on those who do not believe in what they believe in. And not like for me, an atheist. That's why I have a neutral mind. Because the God that tells Ivan you need one wife is the same God telling a Muslim you need 4 women. The one who says you have to go in my house when you're cleansed. Muslims wash their face, their hands, their feet to enter the holy place. But it is not in the other side. So it is not fear of contradiction that you have the same God who has different approaches to things. The people who are killing others, talk about in Iraq, Syria, and all other Muslim territories, are also fronting the name of Allah. Then you have those who are in the African continent. Even they have clusters. We have a Tabulik, we have a Siddam. We wear those short 3 quarters, kind of. Now, these are all Muslims, but they believe differently. You have born agains. Now you have the Anglicans who have crosses. They pray like born agains, but the protocol is entirely purely Christian. You also have those ones. You even have the charismatic as well. So you realize that we are having a lot of, I don't want to call them religions. I want to call them parties that people identify with. For example, you'll go at a certain place where you need to identify yourself that you belong to a certain belief system. That, for example, I am a born again, and it would be a ticket for you to get that job. That I am a Muslim, it will be a ticket for you to get that job. All these things do really vary. So for me entirely, using the name of any unseen God to commit atrocities, I don't look at it at a spiritual perspective, but I'm looking at it as a charge and an act that defeats the purpose of humanity. So it should be condemned at all strongest terms possible.
Do you want to tell us that all these people who are reverberating with the idea of pastors are stupid and they are lost sheep?
Like, what do you mean?
You see, we have different. Let us benchmark in Kampala. We have many churches with pastors.
Yes.
And they are having masses, by the way. Masses that you may not go outside one day and you gather them. So, do you want to tell us that those people are really stupid?
I was once there. The reasons as to why I used to go to church. One, at university, I had a position in church. And because of the position, I was required to be in church. That is one. But before having a position in church, I used to go there to pray simply because I did not have solutions to the problems that were affecting me. And all the people around me were always calling in one thing. You pray, God will provide. So because of that narrative, I started praying so that God can provide. Up to today, He has never provided.
So you mean you have nothing, you have benefited from God? Because even life, how do you survive? Someone will ask you, how did you come into existence and how are you surviving?
At least what I know, I was born. That is quite very important. So for you to tell me I was created by someone who is unseen, yet it's a realistic concept that I was born. I was carried for 9 months. I know my creator, my parents. Science explains that very well. So the moment for you come and start saying there is someone who is in charge of that, then there we go wrong. But I don't have a problem with anyone's belief. However, for me, this one, let me make it clear. Atheists, for us, we believe in you doing the thing, not just believing that something will be done without you doing anything. So when you find people who are desperately looking for hope, those are the people that you're going to find in many of those churches.
Due to unfavorable climate conditions, we are going to shift from the current setting and we got a different setting to finish our discussion. Otherwise, I'm still with Ivan Kawa deliberating on the life and history of being an atheist. Thank you so much.
IT Media.
Empowering truth, inspiring change.
Right, Ivan, before we shifted from our previous setting because of unfavorable climate conditions, we are talking about atheism. Why would you call yourself an atheist? Yet you very well know that in Uganda, in Africa, even in the world, by the way, you are the minority. Do you think there is any influence you can put in society? Can you convince masses that what you believe in is right?
You see, all the best writers, you went to school, those who wrote the books of physics, mathematics, they were not a blanket of people. It was actually one individual. But you realize the power that they did, that they have influenced generations and generations. The geography book you read in senior 4 is being read by other many generations that are far coming after you. Even when we are gone,
Yes.
they will tap onto that knowledge. So it shows you it's not all about the majority representing, but even the minority have a lot of influence through certain things.
But we have seen in the society, for example, people, when you come with your right ideology, definitely you gather masses. And I believe these pastors are gathering masses, and maybe the Catholic Church, Muslims, they are gathering masses. Why? Their ideology is, in the view of the people, is selling and okay.
Actually, I think it's not ideology. You know, in countries where unemployment is a problem, you must support religion apparatuses because they make a certain proportionate of the population busy closing eyes and raising arms and praying that we want jobs. People have graduated, they are busy in church every day praying that I'm looking for that job. They have never written a CV. No. What don't you think if you spend about 4 years praying to get a job in church, don't you think you have to change the technique? So now, as an atheist, that's now what I bring to the mindset of that individual. But by the way, instead of using your productive time to do what you believe is productive, you better use that time to go an extra mile and at least kill 2 hours from that holy time and go and submit your CV.
What?
Learn how to write.
To those people who do both, they submit, they apply, they work, and at the same time they play.
No, I don't have a problem with that because each one of us prays. But the technique under which we pray is totally different. For me, my prayer would be if I sat somewhere and I want something, I will just sit, write down the points I want. If I want to tomorrow to do ABCD, I write it down and then I meditate. It's one way of praying. Because for me, prayer is like meditation, for using a better word to bring to substance what I'm trying to say. So anyone who meditates, what for you call praying, then you chase ghosts and something like that, or blah blah bichi, bichi, bichi. For me now, that kind, for me, it doesn't work for me. Otherwise, believe you me, we wouldn't be having a church just near a hospital where people are being brought every day, broken limbs, broken what. Just go pray for them. Why do you say a person who is sick and bad love has to come to church? Look at the story of Jesus Christ, because I've read the Bible. Look at the story of Jesus Christ. He used to go to meet people, to heal people. It is Jesus who used to look for the people.
There is a biblical verse which says that blessed are those who believe without seeing. Now for you, you don't want to be blessed because people who are believing without seeing, blessings are coming upon them and things are happening miraculously. They don't know how they're happening.
There is nothing absolutely that happens miraculously. Nothing. Your lack of words to say, your lack of thought to think of the probabilities of something happening to you, it doesn't mean there is someone responsible for that, because you also don't have proof. If something happens, for example, I cannot today win an award and then I come and say, thank God, I won the award. I'm going to thank Ivan Tukundane, I'm going to thank my lecturer, I'm going to thank my supervisor, the people who have been core in ensuring that I achieve that. But everyone, musoka fixing amwecho, because there is that fear. By the way, atheists, we no longer have that fear. So for you, might feel guilty to even speak the word God, you know, badly, to put it in a bad frame and something like that. No, to me, it doesn't work that way. But it doesn't really work.
Even the president of the Republic of Uganda, President Museveni, says it, that he thanks God for helping them come out of the guerrilla war because it was not their own making. They did their part, but they believe that God's intervention was very crucial. Yes, I'm not saying that President Museveni is the ultimate measure of people who believe in religion or not, but he also thinks that there are some things that happen in Ruero that they wouldn't have overcome as individuals.
The person thinking that way, it's okay. That's his own opinion. But for me, in my only monetary lenses, I am quite sure it is him who held guns with 27 others, including those who are unarmed, including most of our family members that were part of the NRA struggle, that actually made sure that war was won and the NRM government came into power. So when they attribute it to God, that's not something I can come and argue out with. It is them. That's what they think. But for me, in my narrative, to explain to you how the NRA came into power, even in history, have you ever written that it is God who helped Napoleon, who helped Hitler, who helped Othello to conquer Zanzibar?
Actually, they say that Napoleon is one of the points that luck, and luck is given by God.
Apana, that is your definition, because there was nothing like luck, like God. Luck doesn't mean God. It is you're fitting it to fit the narrative that is the one who gives luck. No, that's not the issue. Imagine these laptops are not charging. And we are speaking, the cameraman is not able to identify that the batteries were off. What happens therein after? Whom will you blame?
Satan.
So, Kati Satan
You see anything bad is associated with Satan.
Now, look at countries like China, which has about 92% atheists. China, about over 1 billion people, atheists. You have Japan, 86%, Sweden, 78%, Czech Republic, 75%, Belgium, 72%, 70%, Norway. Sweden has a number, quite a number. So you actually see that atheists are very many in some countries. And those countries are fast developing. So look at China, one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Majority are atheists. And by atheism, they have clusters. It doesn't mean entirely you have agnostics as well. For me, I don't know whether God exists or not. You also have those who are confused. You can pray, you can go to witchcraft, you can heal, you can make yoga, you can do what. You have those ones very confused. But now you have a staunch believer who knows that God exists. You have the atheists who do not agree that there is enough evidence to prove that God you're claiming to be exists. Totally different things.
There is someone who told me that if it was not God's intervention, if I bring in the aspect of Gaza and Israel, all people would be dead now. But because of God's intervention, and you know Israel is a holy place.
People are dying. People are dying in Somalia. People are dying in Iraq. People are dying in Uganda. People are dying in Congo. Young babies are dying even before being born. Women are having stillbirth. And then a religious person will come and tell you that everyone is created for a purpose. And I always ask, if a woman gives birth and the kid dies in the hospital, does it mean God created that kid for that specific purpose to die?
Godly things are predetermined.
No, that is your narrative. Because there is no evidence whatsoever to prove to me that God's things are predetermined. I have not talked to him for him to explain to you that they are predetermined.
For you, do you have evidence that they are not predetermined?
That's what I'm saying. The burden of proof is not upon me. Believing that God doesn't exist is not the same as not believing that he exists. So the burden of proof is not on me. For me, I am simply saying, if you feel that everything that happens is predetermined by God, for me, I'm saying, without God, things are happening because of A, B, C, D, because you are putting your effort. So prayer without God, I am told, if you work, there is a notion where they were telling me that if you work without praying, you can achieve. If you pray without working, you can't achieve. So technically, you lean on our side where we say, for me, I will work, then prayers will come later. But I cannot front prayer if I have to write a
Catholic Church even believes that God blesses the work of your hands. You work and at the same time you pray.
Now, blessing the work of my hands, how? I am going to the field, I am going to write my script. So who is blessing that? I sit in an editorial meeting every morning to discuss how I'm going to execute my tasks. By the way, even in many meetings, the first thing to be conducted is a prayer. What happens when things turn out to be wrong? Does it mean God didn't listen to your prayers? So for me, prayer should satisfy your ego that I know something will be done. But for me, I'm not ready to feed the narrative, that narrative in my ego, that there is someone who is trying to do something for me. No, absolutely. I am responsible for my own life.
Do you know
I
that
am responsible for what happens to me.
spiritually, do you know that angels now are somewhere?
Everybody,
They are looking at you and they are wondering.
batugamba nga asimanyi wano angel sekisiya ate ono atula wano ng'ono yawandiika ebibi ono yawandiika ebiru. Those ones were subjected to me because at that point I did not have the mind to make a decision. Actually, in the US, someone sued their parents for taking them to baptism without their consent, for circumcising the kid without their consent. Even one imprisoned the parents for giving birth without his consent.
But spiritually, do you know how many sins you are committing now? But anyway, I want to bring the aspect of the Catholic Church. You know, priests are taken to seminary for 10 years being trained to be priests. So they spend a lot of time. So my question is, how can someone spend 10 years wasting time if something is not true?
I have spent 7 plus 6, that is 13, plus 3, 16 years in the education system to be who I am. I did 3 years of journalism. I did 2 years of teaching journalism. I've done 9 years of practicing journalism. So there is no way I go to you because you have done it. Now you have studied in a priesthood for 10 years. Time factor of studying is not the reality of output. You see, people do certificates and they are better off. In the village, do you have qualified engineers? But how many good buildings are being set up in the villages? More stronger than even those where those who have studied are set up. So to me, even born again used to tell us, God used to come and identify you, but today you have to go to theology. You graduate, then from there, because you now have the dynamics of convincing.
By the way, are you aware that we are waiting for the second coming of Jesus Christ?
I was in 2000, bali batugambye agenda kukomawo. Twalinda Yesu mu 2000.
God is unpredictable.
Israel, talk about Israel, by the way. But that's the most disservice. Israel is a promised land. Buli ajogerako mu Bible, promised land. Israel was a non-existent territory. Even in the Bible, it never existed. We had Palestine. But ask yourself, how did Israel come to take over the land of Palestine? The promised land is created in the land of Palestine. One of the countries that was identified to host Israelis was Uganda. If you go and read about it. Even the president was very bitter sometimes talking about it, that these people are identifying Uganda as a state for Israel. This was not very possible. Now, the Israelites have invaded the Palestinian land for quite very many years. They have cut off, the Palestinians have to seek permission to do business on their own land. They need to get working permits on their own land. They need to seek permission. Everything is happening in Israel. So, in the reality of the narrative, spiritually, someone with a lame thinking will come and say, in the spiritual world, Israeli and so is it.
But that is his opinion, not lame thinking. It is his opinion.
No.
In your view as an atheist, it is lame thinking.
What is bad is bad. What is good is good. For me, I will not sugarcoat. Because for you fear, the moment you say this is bad, you are going to commit sin. No. For me, the reality is, whatever is happening in Israel now, children are being killed. You remember when they bombed the hospital in Gaza, and those children are dying. Do you want to put God in that equation? Is God for the Israelites or is God for the Palestinians?
But even God, when he was angry, Jesus Christ, when he was still on earth in his ministry, whenever he was annoyed, he could do something that was weird. So meaning that as humans, we get annoyed and we can do, but again,
so do you want to equate yourself to the omnipresent, omnipotent? Because he gets angry, that's human also. He's also human. This is the guy, by the way, who sent a flood and killed the people. This is the guy who did not tell Lot not to drink. Lot yanyo mwenge obwana we ne bumwegala. Incest started in the Old Testament. If you read carefully, it started there. This man confused these guys who are constructing the Babylon Tower. He confused their languages because they were going to construct a tower that might reach the kingdom of God. Today we have jets. We have CRJ Bombardier 900s. Do you want to say the God by then who was fearing today, we have beat him? So what we are trying to say that each time information, is the more exposure to knowledge you have, the more reality you will understand. A believer will never know that you have another planet other than this one here.
But do you believe that there is life after death?
Hapana, when you die, my brother. No,
they tell us there is life after death, and indeed, even we pray for souls in purgatory that may Almighty God help them to go to heaven.
My friend, for me, in the reality, because the only opportunity we have to know is now. You cannot subject yourself to suffering simply because you are working for a better tomorrow. And mostly the better tomorrow when you are dead.
Because now we have to go to heaven.
No, you go and die now. If that is the purpose. So for me, I cannot be here and be comfortable with my poverty because the mwana wa Katonda.
Provided you are poor in material but rich in spirit, you will have a direct ticket to heaven.
How do you gauge a person who is rich in spirit and a person who is rich in the physical world?
Do what is good.
No,
do what is good. Don't be envious. Don't be angry at people's success.
So how do you define me, this Ivan, who goes to the street and I help the street kids in terms of providing them with a blanket because it is cold, or sugar, or some even money for them to survive, but I don't pray? How do you categorize me? Am I spiritually rich, or I'm doing what human kindness requires me?
That is, we are doing a merciful thing. It is a credit, but you need to do a lot more. But remember in the Bible that
will that person go to heaven or hell? Without praying, but I'm doing good.
That is something that we leave to God to decide. Because
this is the problem. You don't have to leave it to God to decide. I am doing what is good. Just join me in the cause and we help the mothers who are not having the PPEs. They don't have money to buy PPEs.
Ivan, what have we benefited from atheism?
A lot. Because now I'm a free thinker. Then too, I represent the minority who are not able to speak. Because the moment you speak that I don't believe in that system, you wait, all of them will come out jumping. But you try to miss the substance. I am not against any religion, but I am against the acts therein that happen, the acts that have left the poor, very poor, that has made the rich more rich. Alina yanayongerwako, atalina nakatono kali kujibwako. These things are in the Bible.
IT Media.
Empowering truth, inspiring change.